We've all been afraid to lose a loved one, but this is exactly what happened to 4-year-old Bobby Dunbar while he was on a camping trip with his parents. Like many others, Bobby did end up returning, but you'll wish that he stayed missing. It was the summer of 1912 in Louisiana. The Dunbars, as a whole family, go on a camping trip out to Swayze Lake, which included little 4-year-old Bobby Dunbar. As they arrived to the camping site, Percy Dunbar, Bobby's dad, was excited to set up camp and just start fishing with his kids. So Percy and his wife Leslie ended up setting up camp and just getting things started. Percy lit the campfire, Leslie ended up making the beds, and the children did what children do best, which is nothing. They didn't help at all.
We fucking hate kids.
They literally just played around the campfire site, which, I mean, good on them.
Sharpen some spears, secure the perimeter. They could do any of that.
Put your hand in a beehive and pull out some raw honey for your future children.
Go snap an owl's neck.
Gut an elk. Suck its blood. Live in its carcass for warmth. Children stuff.
But when it finally came time to do some fishing, Percy grabbed a few poles and he rounded up the kids. Only there was something wrong. Bobby, little 4-year-old Bobby boy, was nowhere in sight. The panic started to set in. Percy and Leslie went crazy around the camp looking for Bobby. They circled the area shouting his name for about 20 minutes. And the other kids still doing nothing. What's up with these kids, man? Fucking idiots. Anyway, the Dunbars ended up searching for Bobby until they physically couldn't anymore. They had to bring in help from authorities. After an intensive 24-hour search, the police were able to track Bobby's scent using bloodhounds right to the water's edge of Swayze Lake. And sadly, police concluded that Bobby must have drowned in the lake. Or so they thought.
See, something didn't add up to the police. So they took some extra measures in order to find Bobby. And by extra measures, I mean they ended up blowing shit up with dynamite and cutting open some alligators.
They didn't get why these kids didn't help.
You see, a day after the search began, bloodhounds ended up finding Bobby's hat hanging from a branch about like a mile away from where they initially started the search. Bobby's disappearance ended up slowly beginning to look like an abduction instead of just a missing child lost in the woods. The authorities offered up a whopping $6,000, which is like $160K in today's money, for the return of Bobby, if anyone had any clues and if they could find him. But the real question is, who would actually want to take Bobby? Why would they want this 4-year-old? Plus, in the middle of nowhere.
A year goes by and Bobby is still missing. His family's starting to lose hope. They're grasping at straws. They're just looking for answers at this point. Until one came. In Mississippi, police arrested a man named William Walters after receiving numerous phone calls saying that Walters was traveling from state to state with Bobby Dunbar in tow. Sure enough, police catch Walters with Bobby at his side, take him into custody, and immediately contact the Dunbars to come scoop up their son. Percy and Leslie were overjoyed when they got the call. They hightailed it right to Mississippi.
Bobby's parents arrived at the police station. They were instructed to identify Bobby in front of a judge. See, it's been a while since the parents actually did see Bobby, so tensions were a little high. But, parents aren't going to forget their child. They're not going to forget what their child looks like. So Leslie ended up looking at the kid and ended up pointing out key featuristics like he had a birthmark exactly where she remembered. He had scars exactly where she remembered. And at that point, it was undeniable proof that it was her kid. The judge ended up making the case official, and the Dunbars were finally reunited. Not everyone in the community ended up sharing the same joy as the family. In fact, there was one woman who ended up traveling all the way to Mississippi because she ended up wanting to claim Bobby as her own child. This woman's name was Julia Anderson, and she demanded that the police set up at least a visit so she could see the child. The police had no idea what to do with this, so they actually just, they all thought she was crazy, but police had a job to do, so they had to make sure that it wasn't her kid, which ended up leading the police to set up a test. They would have Bobby line up with a few other kids that looked kind of like him and have Julia come up there and identify Bobby. However, things went wrong. Julia could not figure out which one Bobby was. She had no idea the child that she claimed was hers. She had no idea who he was. Julia failed to recognize Bobby, just like the police thought would happen, and they sent her on her way, hoping that she would never return. And then the Dunbars ended up returning home with their son, happily as ever.
Now, we all love happy endings, but let's be honest, we wouldn't be talking about this if there wasn't some weird shit going on. It's not really our style here at Plastic Lounge. So the whole family, the Dunbars, lived a long, happy life. Bobby grew old, had a family of his own. His kids had kids. Bobby passed away in 1966 as an old, frail man, died of natural causes. William Walters, the guy who kidnapped Bobby back in the day, only spent 2 years in jail, which, let's be honest, should have been more, but I'm not a cop. He maintained his innocence all throughout his sentence, was never heard from again. All seemed right in the Dunbar story, till one day, many, many years later after Bobby's death, his granddaughter, Margaret Dunbar, tried to convince her dad, Bobby Jr., to take a DNA test. Why, you ask? See, Margaret was contacted by the granddaughter of none other than Julia Anderson, the crazy lady who tried to claim Bobby was her son all the way back in 1913. She just could not let this thing go.
Like Free Willy, just learn it.
Can we get stickers made of that singing? It makes no sense at all. What did you just say? Like Free Willy, just learn it.
Free Willy.
What? Yeah. Julia's granddaughter was insistent that Bobby Dunbar, the original Bobby Dunbar, was actually her own grandfather. She needed to know the truth. So she needed his DNA. So she tossed him off under the dinner table. Margaret agreed to get her dad, Bobby Jr., to take the DNA test, and Bobby Jr. agreed as well. And everyone was shocked, to learn that Bobby Dunbar was not Bobby Dunbar. Bobby's real name was Bruce Anderson, and he was Julia Anderson's son.
That's right, For 50 years, Bruce Anderson ended up living with the Dunbars. He became their son and became Bobby. Why? Why was he found with William Walters instead of his, actual real family? Well, we can actually tell you that. Bruce ended up coming from a broken home. It's kind of sad. Bruce's family just didn't really treat him that well. So he was looking for an escape. William Walters was pretty much a close family friend and ended up taking Bobby in and treating him and caring for him like it was his own son, really. That also explains why Bruce didn't speak up when his mom came to claim him all the way back in 1913 at the police lineup, where she failed to recognize her own son. Pretty much she was the terrible mom and, just tried claiming him for tax purposes. I guess. I don't know. I don't know why people want kids anyways. Should have let him go. I'm just saying. At that point, it's not your son anymore.
Yeah, there's got to be like some back taxes or some shit you owe, right?
If I know anything about taxes, some money's owed somewhere.
To this day, nobody knows what happened to the real Bobby Dunbar. Maybe he did drown in Swayze Lake. Maybe the police threw a stick of dynamite at his feet while they were looking for him in the woods. Why were they cutting open alligators? All this is too strange for answers. Speaking of strange, you see anything strange, let us know.